Good evening. My name is Sarah Howard. I'm the Youth and Community Services Manager here at DBRL. Thanks so much for coming. We have one of our favorites here tonight, Catherine Miller. She's the Program Coordinator for the Triple P program for Positive Parenting Program. And tonight she's going to talk to us about the role you play in your social emotional health for your school-aged child. So going to turn it over to Catherine, going to magically disappear. And thank you so much, Catherine.
You're welcome. Well, hello, everyone. So I tonight want to kind of talk about where we're at with our social emotional health of our school-aged children. So we've currently been in a time of COVID, and we have had kids who are struggling not seeing their friends, struggling not being in school full time, just kind of struggling with lots of different things. And so I kind of wanted to address where parents were at with that. How we can maybe move forward with some of that and how we can help our kiddos. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is where we as parents or caregivers of children of this age can really help with that social and emotional side. So many kids are social beings. And so with COVID, they've really struggled not being able to mingle with their friends and do all the things that they have normally done. They're not even seeing their school age friends because, many aren't going to school, or if you have that middle school, high school range, they're not going to school but a couple of days a week. And February, we've kind of not seen even those couple of days a week. So what can you do to kind of help that or gauge that? So the first thing I would have you do is look at what's your bubble? What have you considered to be your bubble? And how do you define that bubble? So looking at who your kids can be around. You've talked to those parents about what your expectations are in times of COVID. So maybe you have a sports bubble, or a friend bubble, or maybe it's a school bubble of kids that have agreed. So what's your bubble to give kids some form of socialization? And it's okay to have that discussion of what your expectations are with that bubble. In fact, you would want to make sure that everyone is kind of adhering to the same type of regulations or things that you would approve of. So the second thing is, how are you guys getting together? What are you doing to have socialization with your kids, with their friends? So a couple of things depending on their age. So with the school age children, they are currently in school 4 days a week. And so they're getting some of that socialization back with their peers. But before that, it was really, really hard to be able to have them be able to have discussions with their peers, because the options are things like Zoom, or if they have an iPhone, or if you're letting them do some kind of FaceTime or social media. But now that they're getting that social connection, what are we doing at home to bridge those social connections? So, I would talk to you guys about, are you guys having any type of family game nights? Are you guys engaging in family movie nights, or engaging in something that's going to help your kids have some time to bond with you as a parent or their siblings, but also maybe can engage in discussion later? So what do I mean by that? So let's say we have family game night. That brings that connection of everyone talking to each other, everyone having fun. I guess fun depends on how competitive your house might be, but able to have that type of social connection within the family, so that we're not lost completely without being able to be social with each other. So family game night could be an option, family movie night, and maybe the family comes together and talks about like what movies we're going to choose. Some fun ways to do it is you can pick a series. So maybe you want to pick a Disney series and pick movies that are in Disney. Depending on the age of your kids, picking a series of things and then having regular movie night to watch the series together. So that might be one way of just being able to bridge that time and be able to talk to them. When we get to that tween and teenage time, we really see that they struggle even more. They are missing more of that conversation. They're less willing to engage in what we call play. So your littles will say, come play with me. Let's do blocks. Let's do Legos. Let's color together. Let's do something together. As we start to get older, those children stop asking to do so much of those one-on-one things with us. And so we have to kind of create those opportunities. So good ways to create those opportunities would be asking them to cook with you, planning meals out together. So, having them maybe you assign them a night for a meal planning. And so they're going to look up their recipe. They're going to make sure you guys have the food that you need. And then they're going to help you cook. So not only are they engaged in figuring out a meal that everyone will eat, but they're also engaged in the actual cooking with you. And that gives you time to be able to have discussions with them, to talk about, things that are going on with them. Oftentimes kids will communicate maybe struggles when they feel they're in a really comfortable situation. So it's not like they've been struggling, you kind of notice and you're like, what's wrong? And they're like, oh, nothing, right? They don't want to talk about it. But when you're engaged in something, you're like in the middle of something and you start to open those conversations. So, you might be in the middle of cooking and say, it seems like you've been a little sadder than normal lately. If you're, what's going on with you? Seems like maybe you've been upset about anything. Is there anything that I can help you with or talk about? So they'll be a little bit more engaged and willing to talk to you when they are in the middle of doing something with you. And it kind of just opens that door up to have some of that natural conversation. And for thought about it, because you were already thinking about having that conversation with them, and then you can bring them into it because they're already doing something with you in the room. So it doesn't seem as awkward, as calling your kid out of the room and saying, hey, something doesn't seem quite right. What's wrong? Many kids won't open up when we do that. So just engaging them in a conversation. We also want to look at where we're able to give our kids that arena to talk to us. So, as our job as parents is to kind of help our kids navigate themselves into, people who are going to go out in the world and do something. And so helping them to understand their own emotions and feelings is very important. So being willing to talk about what's going on right now. So, having conversations like, I understand that, this time may be really hard for you. It's hard for you to see your friends. I miss my friends too. Kind of helping to normalize what's going on the best way you can. So saying it's okay to feel this way. Let's discuss it. Or it's okay to be sad about things right now. It's okay to miss certain things. And how can we, talk about it more or talk about what it could look like hopefully sooner. So we're giving that space to say, it's okay to feel a certain way. And I'm here to listen, or I'm here for you to vent to. I'm here to hear your struggles. So a lot of times now that maybe we aren't in such a routine, middle or elementary school is going 4 days a week, but that other level is only going like 2 half days a week. And so how are we filling that other time? I've seen a lot of parents discuss how their kids are really, really struggling emotionally or struggling with school. They don't want to get up and log on to all the Zooms. They're not motivated to do homework. They're just really kind of struggling. And so the question becomes, how do I help them to not struggle? And so the first thing I would talk to you about is like, what does your routine look like? I think many people have been kind of laxed with routines and such because they don't have to go somewhere. You can wake up 15, 20 minutes before a Zoom and pop on. There are some kids who's not even getting out of bed. They're taking Zooms in their room. Many teachers are allowing kids to not have videos on. And so, they're laying in their bed, half participating. They may be, not really engaged because they're distracted. So they may be on their laptop on their Zoom, but maybe they're on their phone as well, paying attention to their phone and maybe not the lesson. Now, of course, that's not all kids, but that's a possibility. And so when they're not engaged in the lesson, they really aren't learning from the lesson. And when it comes to do homework, they may not understand the concept or maybe really struggle because if we loop it back around, they miss the instruction time. So what are your rules for Zoom? Do you have clear rules set up for your kid on what's the expectation? So kind of talking, I really recommend family meetings. So family meetings are when we come together to discuss a problem within the household. The problem within the household could be, talking about the Zooms. It could be talking about chores, household rules, whatever it is. We talk about that at family meetings. So I suggest that we come up with a family meeting and we discuss what's the expectations for school. So my expectation is you'll be up by, and there's a fill in the blank. You will be dressed. There are a lot of kids who don't get dressed during the day. They stay in their lounge clothes because they have nowhere to go. If that's not an expectation for you to change that and you're okay with that, you most definitely don't have to put it on. But the expectation of we're going from lounging at home to we're going to school, basically. So we're really setting up, we are transitioning. And so if we don't set the stage for transitioning, it may be hard for a kid to actually transition. So getting dressed may help a child actually transition to their school day. So what time do you expect them up? What time do you expect them dressed? Is there breakfast involved? Who has to make it? Is it going to be ready for them? But really talking to them about what the morning looks like before they get on their Zoom. And then the other thing is talking about what your expectations of Zoom are. So one of the things that we really need to do is help kids set up for success. So usually if you go to school, you go through the routines at school about what's going on in school for the day, what's the lesson plan, how are things going to be. But if we're at home and we're logging on to multiple Zooms, setting up maybe it's a Word document where you can put the links to Zooms, or making sure that your child knows where each Zoom is supposed to be. I also suggest that you set up a document for them that has the times of what time they're supposed to be on their Zoom. So what time does school start? And we have that on our list. What time is, if there is a break or a snack or lunch, what time is lunch? But what's the expectations of the day? What's the timing of the day? And what do you expect for them? So I expect you to be on your Zooms, you log off for lunch, you log back on, just keeping them accountable for their day, because they're responsible for getting on unless you've taken the responsibility of making sure that they're on every Zoom. Now, there'll be many parents who say, I have to work and I can't always check in with them. And that's going to be true for a lot of parents. So having them set up for success helps to ease excuses, right? So I couldn't find the Zoom link. I didn't know what time I was supposed to be on. I was unsure whether this was an A day or a B day. So helping them navigate what the week's going to look like and setting them up for success can also help them be prepared to have a better learning experience. Depending on the age, like elementary school kids often came home with like a Friday folder, which kind of gave you a rundown of what happened for the week and what the expectation for the next week is. You may not be getting that as much now with Zooms. So are you communicating with your teacher? If you see a need for your child or that your child isn't excelling, are you reaching out and saying, hey, it looks like we're really struggling. Is there something my child needs to be working on? And so asking that teacher so that that communication is there, and asking your child, hey, it looks like you haven't turned in some things. What's preventing you from turning it in? And so perhaps they say, I've turned it in. And your response would be, well, show me how you turned it in, right? And so maybe you get some pushback. What, you don't believe I haven't turned it in? And your response would be to that, I just want to verify. So if the grade doesn't show up, that I can talk to your teacher that I saw that you had submitted it. So we're not wanting to argue and give that push-pull, because many kids are really defensive right now that they may have turned in an assignment and it didn't get counted, and so they're upset. So being able to verify that they've turned in assignments is really helpful. Perhaps they're not doing it right. So some teachers want to turn it in on a certain platform. There may be other ways that they have to turn it in. So helping them to decipher, how are we supposed to turn it in and making sure that we did it right. That's all going to help with that social and emotional side of things, because it's really frustrating to get to work on an assignment and think you've turned it in, but then not get a grade and not have a good grade in there. And so that can be very frustrating for a child, regardless of their age, if they felt like they did the work and they're not getting credit. So again, we're really trying to help our kids navigate through the system. How are we making sure that we're getting what needs to be turned in turned in correctly. Another thing that we could do is really asking our kids, although they've been on Zoom all day, talk to me about your day. So, if you said, how's your day? Kids are usually like, fine. Or maybe they will tell you something about their day, but many kids aren't very social about their day. So when kids were going to school, I often encourage parents to say, tell me 2 things that happened well today or that went well for you, and tell me 1 thing that you wish went better. And so there is engaged conversation and expected conversation. And so when they're young, they're often willing to have more conversation with you. The older they get, the less the conversation is. But if you set the stage of the expectation of, I expect you to have conversation with me, that often occurs. And so get in the habit of kind of asking your kid, how did things go today? Tell me some things that went well. And they can say things like, I was able to get on my Zooms. I didn't have any problems logging in, but we're really engaging them in conversation because we want them to be open and expect to have conversations with us. So if something is not going well, that gives them the opportunity to say that. A lot of times people don't want to bring up something bad in their day, or maybe they don't want to rehash it. So saying, tell me something that went better encourages that type of conversation. So there's something that didn't go so well. So let's talk about it. Tell me how you would have liked it to gone better. And that opens the door for them to talk to you about what didn't go so well for them today. And it doesn't seem like they're just complaining about their day or bringing up something negative. You've already opened the door. Tell me how it could be better. And so that gives that dialogue for that back and forth with your kiddo, and just being able to have that conversation. So far we talked about setting up the day, what's the expectations, carrying ourselves to the Zoom, and going through the day. So then let's say on Wednesday, what's our plan for Wednesday, right? So they don't attend Zooms, but in many schools, there's an expectation that work will still be handed out and work should be done. So what's kind of your expectation for that day on Wednesday? Have you set that expectation up? Is there rules for the day? Those kind of things. So setting yourself up for success versus getting home and being disappointed that things weren't accomplished, or struggling with them for the day because their expectation is, we don't have school today, I don't have to do anything. So again, having that discussion about what do Wednesdays look like? What's your expectation? Perhaps there is more leniency because they don't have to be logged on. So you may go through with them and say, here's the work that's expected to be completed, and here's what we're going to get done for the day. One thing that you can also do is break up that work. So setting a time frame. So this morning, I expect you to get the following things done, right? And then give them a lunch break, give them a break. And then this afternoon, I want the following things done. I'm also in support of letting your kiddo choose. So, maybe they want to do the easier things done first, but help them to be engaged in setting up their day and what that looks like. So if there's any backlash, you can talk about, hey, we discussed this. This was the plan and you agreed to the plan, or you heard what the plan is. So now that we didn't complete that plan, we're going to have to give some consequences for not doing what needed to be done today. It's easier for a child to accept that when they've been part of the planning process. So Kim, so then, if you're going to school 2 days, maybe you're going to school Monday, Tuesday, if you're the first half of the alphabet, or how that worked out. And then Thursday, Friday, you're going to school for the second half. So what does our go to school days look like? Are there expectations for coming home to do homework? Just again, really talking about what that school day looks like. And then, planning for the rest of the weekend. Are there expectations for homework? Are there expectations for social time? What are the expectations that we have? It's easier for kids to really follow a schedule or set expectations when they know what they are. A lot of times we think that things should be common sense, and it may be, but it's hard to discipline on what common sense is when it's your common sense versus their common sense. And sometimes those don't always mesh together. So it's easier to have conversations on the front side than the back side. And children respond far better when there is a set expectations that they can follow and know what's to be expected of them. A lot of times we think kids don't like rules and they don't like things structured, but the opposite is very true. Most people, even adults, like to know what are the rules. So if I break a rule, then I'll expect a consequence. But if I didn't know what the rules were, and all of a sudden you're giving me consequences to something that I didn't know was a rule that I broke, I may have a problem with that, or I have pushback to that. So setting the stage, setting expectations, and helping our kids to understand what are the barriers and challenges to things that we want to get them done, and helping them navigate through that, as well as setting up structure so that if they don't follow that, then when we have to give consequences, they understand why, and it's because they broke one of the set rules or that you had planned for them. So hopefully that makes a little more sense with kind of like navigating through our school day and helping our kids to understand the expectations and the structure of what's going on. So we've had a lot of conversations where it's been in the news about children being depressed, children having a lot more anxiety, children really kind of struggling within themselves, whether it's due to COVID or whether it's due to, just who they are. Kids are really struggling right now. So how do we help them through those times? The first thing is being understanding that things are tough right now. It's not normal. It's not the same as it's always been. And asking them kind of, where they're at with things. How are you feeling? And I really think this is a good time to say, if things went back to normal, to be able to have conversation with them. If things went back to normal tomorrow, what's something you're hoping you can do? Right. So we're just kind of bringing up that conversation to be able to engage in conversation with our kids and find out where they're at and what's going on with them. Sometimes their answers can really help you to understand where they're at. If the first thing they say to you is, I want to see my friend so-and-so, perhaps you can talk about, well, why haven't we been able to see that friend? What are some of the barriers to that? Yes, COVID is here, but is there a way that we can set it up for you to be able to see them on FaceTime or a Zoom, or just have some communication with each other? I have teens, and so I have one of my teens, my daughter will set up study time with her friends. So everyone comes to a Zoom room, but they're actually doing their own thing. So somebody has music playing, a couple of people may be talking or chatting, but they're also doing homework. And so they're able to socialize with each other, ask questions. Hey, is anybody in, I don't know, Mr. Such and Such's social studies, that's what I was trying to get out, sorry, class, because I have a question about, a lot of times they know what classes they have with each other, so they may throw it out. Is anybody working on this project? That could be one thing, is setting up, group times that people can come together and interact with each other without having face-to-face conversation. It still gives them time to communicate with each other, but they're not going to be in the same space, as we know is not, able to happen as much these days. What other kind of things can we get our kids involved in? So this is a great time to find a hobby or a project to work on. It's a great space to learn we talked about cooking earlier, but, really learn how to cook in some worldly skills. So maybe you're teaching your kids how to make small things like muffins in the morning. So they're learning they're reading things, they're learning fractions, they're learning how to be safe in the kitchen, all those things that are important life skills that we could be giving kind of now. Are we picking up a skill, right? So they may be learning how to build something, they may be learning origami, like things that they could pick up that they may have extra time on their hands to engage in something. So talking to your kids, what kind of hobby or what kind of thing could they start to engage in that they have extra time on their hands that doesn't require other people. So maybe they want to take up learning how to knit or crochet. I know that kind of sounds odd and old, but some kids are like, I love it, I want to take it up. Some kids, like I said, have been into origami. There are learning how to draw. One of the things that I have recommended for family night, which can be at all ages, is some of those learn to paints. So like Paint the Town here has put out some. You can find them on YouTube, but being able to paint together. So many of the supplies you can get at the Dollar Tree. I'm really fond of not spending a lot of money for things, but having great family time. And so they even have the little wooden easel that you can put the canvas on. So a canvas, an easel, and some paints. A lot of times, whatever you're going to do, they'll tell you what colors you need. But setting up a family paint night so that everyone can do something together, maybe a hobby that kids take on, or you can look at it as a family night as an activity to do. So again, how are we engaging our kids? How are we keeping their spirits up? How are we getting family time in? And how are we getting friend time in? So what do we do when we have a kiddo that's just not themselves and you are concerned about them? I would always tell you to reach out for resources first and foremost. FACE is a great place for that. That stands for the Family Access Center of Excellence, FACE. They can help you do some screenings and navigate you to the place of contact, sorry. So that's one option. Don't ever be afraid to not get your kid screened if you're concerned about them. I work out of Mizzou's Child Psychiatry Clinic. So if there's ever a concern, you can do that as well. With Triple P, if you wanted to reach out to me, I would definitely help you navigate some screenings that are available to screen your child to see, is my child depressed? Is my child having any anxieties or anything that I can help with? If you find that your child is really in a rut and you're really concerned, your tax dollars currently, as long as you live in Boone County, is supporting 6 free counseling sessions. You can get those out of the Face of Boone County. You can talk to them and tell them that you're concerned about your child, and we can get you some free, and they can get you some free counseling. There isn't income guidelines to that. I can't express how much that you should use the resources that are provided for you, and don't think, oh, I should save them for someone else. We have that 1% tax. It's called a mental health tax that everyone who pays taxes is paying into. And so whether you reach out to my program or another program that Boone County Children's Services Board is funding, it's free to you. And so we want you to utilize our program and utilize our services. And often we will refer you to another service if we feel like we aren't the best fit. So, if I'm working with you on behavior management, let's say you have some kids that are talking back and they're really struggling, and I work with you on some behavior management strategies, but we really see your child isn't responding. And it appears that perhaps they're depressed or they're really struggling. I would refer you to FACE to get those free sessions and tell you to come back to me when we think you're at a good place to be able to move forward. So, just because you start with an agency, that may not be where you end, because we want to help you get to the best fit of your agency. We have screenings and such to help us navigate where would be the best fit or best place for you to go. I am always happy to help you kind of figure that out. The other thing to discuss is what happens if I realize my kid is really struggling and I want to be able to help their mood or help them work through whatever they're struggling with. So the first thing again would be to kind of be able to ask them what's going on. If they can't express that to you, then suggest a few things. So the first thing might be journal writing. So having an outlet for the feelings that they're having right now and a place to put them. So allowing them to journal, telling them that that's their free space to write that and that you'll respect that space. So perhaps they just need to get out how they're feeling, and journaling is a very good way to do that. Another thing that you can do for them is, again, that counseling and asking them if they'd like to go talk to someone else and that you'd be willing to set that up. Also, just spending more time with them. So the more time that we spend with someone, the tighter the bond becomes, and they'll maybe perhaps be more willing to open up with you. Now, I understand that people's time in the day hasn't quite changed. So, how might you get that extra time? You'd be amazed at how much 10 to 15 minutes a day really can strengthen the bond with your child. So how can you put that extra time in there? If you're still doing some type of sport or activity, making sure your car ride conversations matter. Again, dinner time conversations, time at the table if everybody comes and has dinner at the table at the same time. When can you add those times in where you can just really talk about sometimes just nothing, right? Everybody is on TikTok right now, if you're allowing your child to do that. So saying that you'll do a TikTok with them or watching TikToks with them. Perhaps you don't allow it on their phone, but you're willing to have it on yours. I'm not advocating for you to go and get TikTok or allow your kid to have it, but if it's already a part of your life, then joining in with them and watching some of them. There are so many ages of people on there. There's like the TikToking granny. There's just so many ages of people. And one of the things that's been on there is people really engaging like their grandparents. You'll see the grandparent engaging in part of the TikTok. There's definitely some discussion on whether TikTok is appropriate, what can happen. So I urge you to do your own research before allowing that on your child's device. But if it's already there and it's something that you're engaging in, it's definitely a fun way to find a way to engage with your child. Other things, some people are playing a game called Among Us. Schools playing it, so they may have an account already to be able to play with their friends, but playing a game with your child is a great way to connect and bond. In my household, we've all subscribed to Uno, and we can play Uno with each other. You can have a closed room and everyone plays. Now you don't have to do that on your phone. You can actually play Uno and, in the living room, have a game of Uno or a game night. Definitely find some way to have that laughter and fun and engagement with your child. So there's a comfort level that if something is not going well, that you can have that discussion. So we've kind of talked about being able to bond with our children better and being able to do that through family meetings, game nights, cooking with our kid, just doing some activities. We've kind of talked about setting a schedule. So there's expectations of what our work week and our school days look like. And so that if those things are completed, that we can give consequences for them not doing those things that we need. And then we've kind of talked about if any type of screening. So perhaps you're concerned about your child and what you can do for that concern. So those are a few of the options of things that we can do. We're kind of moving a little faster, but I think it's because I'm talking to myself. What kind of questions about that social emotional level, or what kind of things are you guys thinking that I could answer for you? Feel free to put them in the chat, or anything else you want me to hit on. Like, I came to this thinking I might hear about fill in the blank. And perhaps I could talk about that piece to it too, if you think we're missing something. Anything? Okay. So I guess we're going to get out pretty early, actually. Are you still there, Sarah?
I am. Let me start myself again. Yes.
Was there anything when you were listening that you thought, oh, I hear this come up at the library, or people are looking for books on any of that? Okay, I see one from Lori. Was there anything that you've heard as well?
No, but I have to say that everything you've been saying also, it truly can work for adults as well. So if you have a significant other or someone or a parent or something like that that needs some more routine and needs to, spend some time, or I was sitting here thinking about my elderly parents actually as you as you were talking. Uno, maybe I could play Uno with them online or something. So yeah, just remember it's helpful for all ages to hear this. Yeah, it looks like we've got a tantrum question. How to handle it when they're in the heat of the moment of feeling upset and they're in kindergarten is the question.
Okay, kindergarten age. Yeah. So tantrums are most definitely normal and something that we're always going to, experience. But how do we handle the tantrum and when it's already going or already started or getting them to calm down? So the first thing I always suggest is, again, that prepping, like that pre-discussion talk about what's the expectations of the day, what is the schedule of the day. Often kids get upset when they don't want to stop an activity to start another activity. So really outlining, this is what's going to happen the rest of the evening, or this is what our day looks like, and talking about transitions. But what happens when they're already in the heat of the moment and you can't bring them back down? They're just really frustrated and upset. One thing is we're going to validate their feelings. I know you're feeling really upset. I like to be able to talk to you, but I can't talk to you when you're screaming at me, or I can't talk to you when you're yelling. I can't hear you when you're crying. So helping them to understand what emotion is going on right now that you can't help them work through until we kind of calm that down. Depending on, if you'd like to do a one-on-one with me, we can kind of talk about what do those tantrums look like. So one of the things that you can do with me, which is totally free, is come to me and we'll talk about whatever the issue is and how to work through that issue. So an example of that is today I was dealing with a set of parents whose child yells all the time. So we're really going to work on that yelling and screaming when they get upset. So, the first thing we're going to do is help them to understand what and give it and define screaming. So what does screaming look like? So tell me what your scream outside might be. Tell me what your happy scream might look like. So if they're just playing, now tell me what your angry scream sounds like, so that they can differentiate what type of screaming they're doing and why you want that to change. So you are upset and you are angry screaming, right? So you're helping them to understand where they are in the midst of that emotion so that you can help them move forward from it. So really kind of working through where they're at. Sometimes we just have to let them be and say, I'm gonna leave you screaming in the kitchen on the floor right now. I'm gonna let you have your moment. When you're ready to come talk to me, let me know. Right? So we're just gonna let them have that moment. Now they can't destroy things, they can't hurt themselves, but we just want to give them that space to calm down. So is there a calm down space in the house? Is there a place that's okay for them to go ahead and have that moment, and really work through that with them, and then help them on the other side, when they are finally calmed down, what do you think, what really upset you? So trying to find out what was the root of that. Sometimes it's nothing and they were just tired, right? And so, maybe we need to start paying more attention, especially if they're happening more often, when these tantrums are occurring and what might be. So if it's close to bedtime and maybe they don't want to go through the bath and all the rituals that we need to do for the day, or for the rest of the night, that we say, hey, it's almost bath time. So it's not a good time to get out our blocks because we won't have enough time before it's time to go take our bath. So trying to, on the front side of that, prevent the tantrum from occurring. Lori, is that kind of helpful? And again, if there's something that you want to do a one-on-one with, let me know. But really trying to do a lot of that preventative side to things and talking about transitions. A lot of tantrums occur with transitions or when they're not expecting to change to something else that they're doing. So how can we set them up on that front side to be more successful as they transition to the next thing? And then also being attentive. Do they seem more tired today? Are they edgy? Are they tearful quickly? And if so, how can we move through the night where we're not walking on pins and needles, but how do we, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But how do we move through getting through the night so that we're not falling apart completely? Yes, Lori, so just email me. Sarah, will you throw that email in there again? And then we can set up a one-on-one and work through that as well.
Yes, I will put that in there again, so you guys have it. There it is. There you go. So that way you can get a hold of her and talk through specific examples.
Yeah. So I am always willing to set up one-on-one. So what does kind of a one-on-one look like? And let me kind of talk through like what happens. So usually we set up a time. They're about 45-minute long conversations. I actually just work with you as the parent to begin with. So you and I will have discussions about your child. And the reason is, if I do interventions with your kid, then your kid responds to me. But if you do the interventions, then your child responds to you. And the skills that we've implemented, you can often, use at another time with another set of issues if something comes up. So I want to give you the skills and interventions to be able to use later. So usually we meet the first time, we kind of talk through what's going on and we set a plan of action. I send you out to work with your child and do that plan of action. We usually meet back in a week to talk about what went well and what didn't go so well, and kind of work through what we need to tweak or what things that we need to do. And then you go back out again and you try another week, and then we come back. So at this third appointment, it kind of tells us where we're at, or if things are going well, then I usually have you continue for the next couple of weeks and just give me email updates about how things are going. If something is not going well, then we usually meet again. So right now meetings are by Zoom, so you don't have to worry about coming into the clinic or anything like that. I usually am able to accommodate schedules. If there is another party that you want to be on, your partner, or maybe it's your co-parenting situation and both people are having the struggles at both houses, the Zoom link can work for multiple parties to be involved in. And so we're really setting the stage of what type of language we're going to use. So both set of parents are using the same language in the household when we're communicating with the child, so the child understands what's being expected of them. And usually on that fourth visit, if things are going great, I don't see you anymore unless you want to be seen for something else or to work on something else. So usually our sessions are about 3 to 4 weeks long. Of course, we'll stay until things are resolved to what works best for your household. And I say what works best for your household is because what's acceptable to you may not be acceptable to someone else. So when I first started this, I had a parent who came whose kid tantrum 10 times a day. When we got down to 4 times, she's like, this is great. And I'm fine with that. Because her norm was so high, right? She felt like 4 was a piece of cake. She eventually emailed me back and said, we're not even really having tantrums during the day at all, but she was willing to be let go at 4. Someone else might be like, 4 times a day, I'm not dealing with that. And that's fine. We'll work to what's acceptable for you. But I don't set that guideline for you. I want you to be comfortable with whatever's going to work best for your household. The days, so it is like Monday through Friday, but often there's some leeway to earlier appointments, lunchtime appointments, and even some evening appointments. So I really do try to accommodate the schedule of those I'm seeing. So don't be worried about that you're confined between that 8 to 4 time frames. So usually there are some accommodations that we can do with that. And then of course I do these seminars for the library. If you have a small group, maybe you have a group of friends that you want everybody struggling with tantrums right now. And so you get a small group together and we talk about just some of the basic concepts of tantruming and how to reduce those. And then, we could do a one-on-one if it didn't get better with some of those basic skills. So that's also an option. And I'm always willing to do that as well. So hopefully that answers some of that. All right, anything?
Thank you so much. This has been so great. And really, talking to other peers from other libraries across the country that I know, our resources, like you said, in Boone County are exemplary. And it's been great to have you and BCECC and all of these things available to parents and to be able to point them to things. So it's been great. I put this stuff in the chat again. You've got her email as well as a little survey. If you don't mind filling that out, that would be great for them. Trying to think, is there anything else, Catherine, as we say goodbye?
No, if you ever need any, library resources, you guys are great about helping to pull something and putting it on hold for somebody to come pick up with their card. So that's another option. I've been working with a parent and said, I think, you guys reading some books on this would be helpful, and reaching out to the library to get some books for you.
And we still have curbside service as well. So if you don't feel comfortable coming into the library, we can bring them to your car.